Sorry to miss you on Friday. I had a very complicated day. It was complicated because I had a vehicle in the shop and we hadn't factored in that aspect, and we were preparing for a block party, and I was able to get a local soft serve truck to come in last minute, but I spent most of my day coordinating that. So ice cream is apparently more important to me than making a Twitch session, which I guess points out my essential lack of virtuousness in that regard. um, but I mean ice cream. Anyway, what I was going to do on Friday, and I think I'll do today, is I'm going to show you some differences between different digital editions of the board game Wingspan, which was released, I think, early in the pandemic, possibly just before. I can't remember. I have the physical board game with no expansions. I also have it licensed as an official DLC in Tabletop Simulator, and I have the Steam standalone version of Wingspan, and I also have access as an alpha reviewer to the Board Games Arena version. So I would like to show you, I think I'm going to start with, and that's in alpha, so it's got some bugs and it is not entirely faithful to what they envision it will eventually become, but it's actually not a bad version. So let me start capturing my browser here. No. Oh, here we go. Okay. That height. All right. Yeah. Okay. And this width. That is about right. Yeah, I believe that's about right. It's a little big actually, but I think that'll work. Okay, so let me show you the alpha. What have I got going here? I think I have games with, yep, I have games with real people, so I can't show you that because I haven't gotten their permission. But I can still show you a hot seat game. Look at this, it's almost like I've done this before. This just restricts it to me, and let me make those hot seat players. So hot seat just means you would use the same screen and switch off between players. But it's just me and two hot seat players. So the way that Wingspan works is it's a bird enthusiast's engine building game. You use cards, and the cards are, each card is a bird, and the bird has powers. It has here we go. It has a nest type. Sorry, so the bird, let's start from the beginning. In the upper left has a display of the habitats that it can live in. So there's the woodlands, the grasslands, and the wetlands. And, the forest, the grassland, and the wetlands. This particular bird, the cedar waxwing, can only live in the grassland and the forest. The icons below the habitats are what you need to feed it when you put it into play. And in this case, it's 2 fruit. They look like 2 berries, right? When you get the cedar waxwing out onto the board. It's worth 3 victory points. It has a bowl type nest and can hold 3 eggs. And then after you get it out on the board, if you activate it, which means doing the thing that you normally do in the habitat that you put it in, then after you do that thing, it activates all the birds that are played in that habitat. So when this is activated, you tuck a bird card from your hand behind this bird, and if you do, you get 1 fruit from the supply. So they all have different activation powers, or I don't see any other kinds of powers, but there are other kinds of powers which I will explain to you when they come up. But white powers, which are just black printing against the white background that's normal for the card, are powers that are activated when you play or put the bird on your board. There are pink powers and there are blue/green powers, which activate between turns or at the end of rounds. So to start the game, you decide based on the end of round bonuses, which are on this card that has these tracks on it, right? These are, in the board game, they're tokens that you shuffle and then you place randomly on the board. So like this one means birds that have in-ground nests, which is that icon of the sort of eggs sort of by themselves. And those birds have to have at least 1 egg on them, right? So you'd have to play the Baird's Sparrow, or you could also play one of these with a star nest, which means it's a wild card. It can count for any type of nest. So you would have to play a star nest or an in-ground nest. A ground nest. And then you would have to get eggs on it, which I'll show you how you do. This end of round goal is just the number of birds that you have played in your grassland. This one is the number of eggs that are in a platform nest. I don't see any platform nests out there, but there are birds that have platform nests. And this last one is kind of like round 2, but this one is for wetlands instead of grasslands. So those are goals that all the players share, and then each player has a hidden secret known only to them bonus card, which is evaluated at the end of the game. And you actually may get more than 1 throughout the play of the game, but you start out by choosing 1 of 2. So I factor these end of round goals in and these end of game bonus cards in to decide which of the 5 birds I have been randomly dealt I start with. If any, I can discard them all. And then for each one that I keep of the initial 5, I have to discard a food. So if you discard all of your birds in the initial 5, you get to keep all your food. So I think what I will do is I will plan to take I will plan to take the oologist, which is not bird specific. But you can see it's a high goal. Like you have to have 7 to 8 birds that have at least 1 egg on them. But since eggs are kind of ubiquitous, they're sort of a currency in a way, which I'll explain later. I think it'll be worth it. I generally don't have a great record with these birds named after a person, or birds with a body part in their name, or birds with a geographical feature in there. There's a bunch of them like this, but I don't know. Maybe I should take it. It is slightly easier than the one that I'm thinking of, but I'll go ahead with the whole. And who am I? I'm actually, I guess I'm beta. It's hard to say who you are when you start in hot seat mode. No, I'm not. I'm alpha. Because the only reason I know that is because the boards below me that I can see, and you can see everybody else's boards, but you can't see what's in their hands. The other boards that I can see are beta and perigee, so I'm alpha. So alpha's going to keep oologist, but it's not time to choose the bonus cards right now. It's time to choose the birds. So um, what I sort of generally want with the oologist is cheap birds that can have one egg in them, right? And then the secondary thing that I'm looking for is what I can do to achieve a good score in round one compared to my competitors. So in fact, what I'll do is I'll choose for that, which is I'm going to keep the starbird and I'm going to keep the Baird's sparrow. And then up here, I say I'm going to keep two bird cards and discard two food, right? And then I want to look at, well, what do they need? They both need an invertebrate and a seed. So I'll keep the invertebrate and the seed, and I will discard among the other three, and I'll just randomly be like, okay, what about the fish and the rodent? And then now it's time for me to actually choose the bonus card I want to keep, and I already said that I wanted the oologist, so I'll click that and confirm for alpha the starting lineup. So I do the same in beta. So let's see, in this case, I'm not going to take nest box builder because it will divert me from the other kinds of nests I need to build in the end of round goals. So I will take the viticulturalist instead. So what I want is birds that have a fruit symbol in their food, which is only the purple gallinule. So I will keep that one. And then I'll also see, are there any that have, so the gallinule has a platform nest, which is good for round 3, right? The other kinds of nests we're looking for are the ground nests, and that actually have quite a bit of choice here. If I want to, I can pursue those as well. I think I'll actually take the star one because that can be used both for the ground nest and the platform nest. So I'll take two birds, keep two, discard two. So now again I look. So this one is wheat, or sorry, seed, fruit, and any. That's what the wheel with all the colors means. And this one is fish, right? So I'm gonna have to discard more food than I want to because I'm keeping the two birds. Um, so let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. I would like to have all four, but I can only keep three, so I'll discard the fish and the rodent again. And then I said I was going to take the viticulturalist, so I'll confirm. And then finally, perigee does the selection as well. Um, let's see. Um, Same end of round bonuses. For the same reason, I'm going to do bird feeder instead of wildlife gardener, because again, wildlife gardener puts me in odds with the two other kinds of nests that I need to keep. Um, there are a bunch of bowl type nest choices available, but there's also some wheat eating birds. In fact, the blue gauzebeak and the bronzed cowbird work, so I will take those. And then it's invertebrate and wheat that they want, so I'll just discard the same food that I had discarded before, and then I will keep bird feeder and confirm. So that's the setup. And then I'll just walk you through the the four actions essentially. So I've set it up so each player can sort of immediately play a bird. So in this case, the one that perigee, because now I can see it's the spinning hourglass. That's whose turn it is. So perigee can play a bird, and the one that perigee can afford right now is the bronzed cowbird, who can only live in the grasslands. So the bronzed cowbird, I'm going to play a bird, select the bronzed cowbird, pay the food costs, confirm the food cost, and it automatically plays to the only habitat that it can play in. So Alpha can play either Baird's Sparrow or the bush tit. I think I'll play the bush tit because it has a slightly easier to use power. Again, grasslands only, so click, invertebrate and seed, confirm, goes to the only habitat it can go to. And then finally this one. So I could play the purple gallinule because I do have 3 food and that's what it needs. I don't really have the fish, so I think I do want to play the purple gallinule. So I'll do play a bird, select, click, 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 confirm, and it goes to the wetlands, which is the only habitat that it can live in. Okay, so now perigee has another bird to play, but none of the food that that bird needs. So perigee has to gain food several times. Potentially the other thing. So the way this works as far as the actions go is you get to do whatever is the leftmost not bird covered slot. So for gaining food, if I gain food, I only get 1 food. I get 1 die that represents a food. If I lay eggs, I get 2 eggs. It won't help me because I don't have any nests to put them in. If I did, I could optionally discard 1 food and get an additional egg. If I draw a bird card, I only get 1. If that makes sense. It should. So perigee's gonna gain food, which I think I can do by clicking the highlighted square or clicking the button. I'm gonna try the highlighted square. Okay, so then I look down in the bird feeder and I see these are the ones I can pick from. And in fact, I might well have wanted to look at the bird feeder first to see whether now is a good time to feed. I need wheat and invertebrates, right? I do see an invertebrate, so I'll take that one. The other thing to know about the bird feeder is that if there's at any point where the bird feeder is only showing 1 type of food, you can re-roll it. So if somebody took the fish die, then the next person to take from the bird feeder could re-roll instead of having to take a rodent. This one also needs food, so we'll get some more food. Actually, no, we won't, because it's not favorable for us. There's only a fish and 3 rodents, and that's not what we want. So instead, let's lay eggs or take birds. Yeah, let's lay eggs. So in this case, I only have 2 spaces in 1 nest. So it doesn't do me any good to consider spending an extra food to get an additional egg. So I'm just gonna I'm gonna lay eggs. And I'm gonna place 2 eggs on this bird. And then, like I said, discarding to get another egg doesn't help me, so I'm not going to. And uh, the other thing that happened was I'm going to go back. So, uh, was it this one? No, it was this one. So when I laid eggs, it first let me lay eggs and then it activated this card. But the problem was there was no space. So it didn't really do anything. But later on, it'll be helpful if I spend eggs from this bird to be able to refill just by going through that action. Um, this one needs a fish, and there's a fish in the feeder, so I'm going to get that food. Okay, and I have a fish. And you go playing like that, and you get more powerful as you go. And the other thing to keep in mind is the number of turns in a round is based on how many blocks you have. Um, you spend a block for each turn that you take. So, like the first turn when I placed a bird is this block up here. The second turn when I fed was this block here. And you keep placing until you run out of blocks. And then that means the round is over, and then the first round goal is evaluated and you're scored. So all the players right now only have 6 turns left, and you can eat up turns pretty quickly doing basic things. So you have to be careful and cognizant of how time is passing. Um, I can't really show you the whole game, but maybe I will later. This is just sort of a preview. So it's pretty good as far as the interaction and interface goes. The developer, and this is in alpha, the developer has been actively working on suggestions and bug reports. Um, and it seems like they're really trying to get this game ready to go out and be played. So it'll be a great addition to Board Game Arena, which already has some great premium and non-premium games. So that's Board Game Arena. I'm going to, what am I going to do? I think I'll switch gears um, to the official standalone game on Steam and show you that one. Um, and then I will, if I have time, show you the Tabletop Simulator one. But when I'm in a sort of break from the past where I stopped the stream and started again with the new metadata on it. In this case, since I'm just comparing Wingspan against Wingspan against Wingspan, I'm just going to close this browser window, start Wingspan in Steam, and reattach OBS to that, so you'll be able to see it. So you might see a little static when I close this process here. Boop. Oh, it's just black. Okay, good. I'm starting Wingspan, and once I get it resized, I will attach OBS to it. Green. Correct. Yeah. Okay. And then reattaching OBS to it. All right, and then that is, I need to move, there we go, bring the whole window in. Okay, so this is the main menu of Wingspan on the standalone Steam version. I'll just show you the play mode. So now, one thing to know is, so you saw on Board Game Arena that there was no AI, it's just people that play it, right? That is also the case for Tabletop Simulator, as far as I know, although they may have implemented the automata. And the reason I mention the automata is that in the physical board game, there's a random deck and a rule book for playing solitaire against an automated opponent. And you use the random deck to tell you what the automated opponent does while you try to play the game against it using essentially the normal rules. The standalone Steam version has two versions of AI, so you can play this game just with yourself and two different kinds of AI. The first is you can actually play the automata mode, um, and you can play the automata mode even with additional AIs, which play a more normal way, or you can set up your own game with different levels of intelligence for AIs, which is not using the automata um, algorithmic rule set. So I'll just show you easy so you can see. And you can change your color and mess around with avatars, some of which are quite cute or disturbing or weird. The other thing that I need to tell you is that I have, yeah, let's do another background. I have the European expansion for the standalone Steam digital version, and I'll just disable it for this one. So we have a better comparison to what was on Board Game Arena. So aside from the interface differences, which are many, you can see, you can customize your icon and your background and the sort of look of the game. The rules, the core rules are the same, but the standalone Steam version is prettier. I think the UI is slightly more fluid. There are discussions on the alpha on Board Game Arena about accessibility and user interface and different decisions, some of which are easy to control in Board Game Arena and some of which are difficult, that may or may not make the game play more smoothly. It's my experience that the standalone Steam version is quicker and a little easier to work with. It just seems like there's less button pushing, but it also is a little bit harder to control, and I'll show you that in a minute. Okay, so again, starting is choosing birds, choosing food, and choosing bonus cards. So the one thing that I think I like Board Game Arena's version better than the standalone Steam version is with the standalone Steam version, they sort of hide the bonus cards from you. And you have to hit the right tab to see them, right? They're not all on the same screen. But it's also sort of more scenic and visually interesting. So I don't know. This does, yeah, that just lets you see the interface. So I evaluate my bonus situation. I think I can even, yeah, I can even pick them right now. I can do that instead of having to pick the bird card first. And I can preview the end of round goals up here. If you hover over them, it'll show you what the conditions are. So again, I think according to my earlier logic, I'm not going to take this one because these nests that are in trees are not, they're not sympathetic with the end of round bonuses and goals. So instead, I'll take photographer, which is birds with colors in their names, which I've told you before I am bad at doing, but we may as well do it just to see and to move on. So I'm going to tentatively click that, but I still need to do the birds. So colors in their names, maybe the goldfinch counts, and it is one of the end of round goals. The others that would qualify for the end of round goals are ones that are like wetlands or grasslands, which looks like the majority of my birds here. So I'm going to opt for flexibility and only keep one card, and I'll show you why in a moment. So since I'm only keeping one card, then I can keep uh, 4 food cards, and then it says I can go. So that's my setup, and you can see that the other 2 AIs just took their turns. I didn't have to mess around with anything. Um, it's nice to have AI players, especially if you're playing solitaire, but that's sort of more of a quirk of Board Game Arena. I don't think they really have a lot of options for developers to deploy AI players. So I wouldn't blame this game for it. It's sort of systemic. It's a systemic issue for Board Game Arena overall. It's for playing against human players, not for playing against computer players. So we go right into the first turn of round 1 of 4. And so I only have to worry about what I've done. And you can see that they sort of talk briefly, the AIs, about what they did. I am going to play the American goldfinch into the grasslands. And I can do that because one of the rules about feeding your birds is that if you don't have 1 or 2 of the foods that the card asks for each one that you don't have, you can spend 2 unrelated foods. So I can spend 1 of my seeds to fulfill 1 of the requirements, and then I can spend whatever 2, like fruits and invertebrates, to cover the other ones. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'll change it to be fruits and invertebrates. Wheat and fruit and invertebrates. That little bit of color text you can see it if you right click, but the game reads it to you as you play it, which is cute and not something that Board Game Arena is going to do. This is a white power when played, gain 3 seed from the supply. I was talking about white powers before. Okay, so if I, all right, so I just used my scroll wheel on my mouse and it whipped me around in my habitat, which was not my intent. I actually just wanted to hover over this. You can see that the photographer, I now have 1 bird that counts because there's an icon which I can't actually point at without making the card disappear. But there's an icon in sort of the middle of the card that shows a 1 and then what's meant to be a bird card. And that means I have 1 qualifying bird, the American goldfinch, because it has gold in the name. I don't have any more birds to play, and since the sort of aim of the game is to play birds and make an engine, then I need to get more birds. So I'm going to go to the wetlands, and I'm going to draw a bird. I'm going to draw from the face up. You don't have to. If you don't like what you're looking at face up, you can draw from the deck. Really? Okay, so somebody else's ruby-throated hummingbird means that I get to take um, neither of these help me, so I'll just take a fruit. Okay, so I don't have the right food to feed this one, but I can do it anyway, again, because I have other wild resources, so I'm going to play it. So I need to play an invertebrate and a seed, and I think the way that it has automatically chosen those for me is fine. Okay, so still working on getting more birds out um, into the wetlands. Now, what concerns me is, and this is what I was going to tell you about earlier, the reason eggs are a currency is because once you play on the furthest left column, and what I mean by column is if you look at the board view, this column, right? This column does not cost additional eggs, but after that, playing out towards the right, they do. The second and third columns require whatever the food cost is for the bird plus whatever the egg cost is for the column. So it's just an additional fee to pay for playing a bird card. So in column 2, it's whatever the food is plus 1 egg. In column 3, again, plus 1 egg. And then column 4 and 5, plus 2 eggs. So the thing that I need to keep in mind is I don't have any eggs, so I need to lay some. Um, the more eggs, the better. If you're not using your food for anything immediate, you should discard one to get a bonus egg. So I'm going to lay eggs. I'm going to discard, I think I'll discard the fish. And then I'm going to put the eggs. I think I'll fill up this one first. And in successive rounds, I can put eggs on other birds. Okay, so now I am going to draw, and I'm going to draw 2 cards because I'm going to spend one of the eggs I just got. So that's now I have 2 eggs to draw, or 2 birds to draw. So I'm going to get the chimney swift, and I'm going to draw from the deck because I'm seeking out birds that can live in the wetland habitat. And then this one, when activated, if this bird is to the right of all other birds in its habitat, move it to another habitat. It turns out you don't have to. It's a may card, not a have to card. Um, so now I need food that I don't have, and I don't have enough to just spend. So let me look at the food situation. Um, so let's count this out. I have 2 birds that qualify for playing in the wetlands. I want to get eggs in the wetlands. And right now I don't have any eggs in the wetlands because I wasn't thinking properly. I already have a bird that can take 5 eggs, and I can get 3 eggs in one turn, and assuming I don't get any food in between, two eggs in the next turn. So if I want to maximize my eggs, I shouldn't fiddle around with getting food to play these and only getting 1 egg round. I should actually pay attention and get the eggs that I can with the resources I have and the turns I have left in this round. So I'm going to do that. Yep. All right. So I'm going to lay eggs and I'm going to spend my last wheat to get 3 eggs, and then I'm going to put all 3 on this one. So I didn't account for the ruby-throated hummingbird, but that actually means that I can get 3 eggs in this round too, which is actually a good thing. So I'm just going to go and do that. So finish these 2, and 1 there. 1 turn left. Or I'll take a rodent. No, actually, I'm going to reroll. And I'll take an invertebrate. Why won't I take an invertebrate? I have to take a. I'm confused now. Oh, maybe it's. I think I failed to do this correctly. Yeah, it's not going to let me. So I took a rodent. So now I don't have any spaces to put eggs. You can see that over here it's displaying that I have 8 out of 8. So it would now make sense for me to play another bird. I have 1 turn, so I could potentially put this harrier in grasslands because he's not going to help me in wetlands because I would put him in wetlands and then not put any eggs on him, right? Because I only have 1 turn. So I'll put him here. I've got the 1 rodent. I will spend from here. And then we count. So that we had just resolved the end of round bonus for round 1, and that's how it went, is that I had 5, 1 AI opponent had 2, and another one had 0. So I got 5 points, and the green one got 2 points. And the play proceeds like that. You get 1 fewer turn per round. So round 1 you get 8 turns, round 2 you get 7 turns, and all the way down to 6 turns for round 4. But your bird's powers stack up. So like now I have in here I have 2, and if the leftmost one were a brown power, they would both execute every time I laid eggs. So sometimes it's very helpful. Again, I'm not going to take us to the end of the game because it really is just counting up the things that I talked about. Some additional stuff as well. For instance, when this one is played, you draw the top card from the bird deck, and if it's less than 75 centimeters, you tuck it, and that is a prey action. Each tucked card is worth 1 victory point at the end of the game. There are other non-prey actions that are usually called flocking actions, where you would tuck a bird. The other thing that's worth points at the end is called caching, and there are some bird powers. Yeah, I don't have them. The others might. Let me see. Nope. Nope. Anyway, oh, maybe they do. No, no. Okay. So there's another brown power, an activation power called caching, where your bird may be able to collect food from the supply or the bird feeder and cache it on the bird card, and cached food is also worth 1 victory point per food item. So um, those are most of the rules. And then there are some bonus cards and so on that you would have to learn by playing the game. So let me give you a brief. I'm going to close this. Um, and I want to give you a brief tour of Tabletop Simulator, which is a um, simulator and not necessarily, um, it doesn't necessarily enforce the rules. Famously, some setups for games in Tabletop Simulator, you can flip the table and scatter the pieces in the board. So that is not necessarily what we want, but sometimes it's a goal. I don't know. um, I do not approve of this music. Oh, look, it's already taken. Okay, so let me just make sure that we're capturing the right window. I think we're just using the same video memory, which is not the ideal way to do it. All right. So let me create. Do I want single player? Multiplayer? I think I want single player. So see, there's Wingspan. Stuff's being loaded. So usually the sort of premium paid for DLC that you buy from Tabletop Simulator is scripted. And by scripting, they mean to enforce some of the rules, or maybe all of them. And they also mean to make setup easy. So, for instance, let's see here. I think I'm gonna see if I can zoom in here. What does this say? Spectate. Okay, yes. So they're all gonna spectate except for one, I guess. Um, European Rulebook, Automata cards. I'm looking for the controls here. There may not be that many. No, I don't need those. See if I click. Oh, that's the appendix. I'm just wondering. I do not wish to delete it. Yeah, I'm not sure what I'm doing here. What am I doing? You can see I'm actually clicking and dragging objects, and like I can't even easily reposition this to where it was before. Um, I can flip this over and it's got the blue and the green. Oh, here we go. I think it's these. Setup game. All right. Wow. Okay. And then here I can look at my different bonuses. I feel like I should be able to zoom in. There we go. Holding down Alt means I can zoom into whatever I'm hovering over. Um, But I can also, just so you know, I should be able to, yeah, I can pick up an egg and I can fling it across. That's not the most. But you can also see that this particular tray has been built to hold eggs. So once I dropped it back into the tray, it now reads 100 eggs again. And sort of similarly, these supply tokens are infinite. And it doesn't get any smaller. And it reassembles back to the stack if I give them back. So here you can play essentially the same game, right? I'm going to keep the viticulturalist. So these bonus cards came from this area. So I'm just going to discard kind of willy-nilly, I suppose. And then also I have to, so if I'm going to discard, let's say I'll discard these 3 birds. They sort of, you can see it sort of snaps to the same deck of 3 and not scattered as singletons. And then, oh, you can see you can enable the European expansion or Automata. And then I'm not sure what the hell this is. Oh, those are the end of round bonuses, which, where did that go? Confused. Super confused. I'm not sure if what is this? Oh, that's the scoring card. We don't need that right away. Oh, and okay. Yeah, I'm not sure where the end of round bonus card went. That is a little concerning. Oh, that's, don't mind me while I tilt my view. You can see similar, game elements to what we were. And so, these cards that are in my hand, other players at the table would only see them as the backs of the cards, unless I took one out and put it on the table, and then they would see it. So the secrecy is preserved by the simulation to some extent, but you have to know what the simulation does and how it plays. Still looking for that bonus card, guys. Was hoping for more success here. Bonus card's kind of useful and key here. See, I don't know what I'm doing. I obviously should have played this one a little bit just to figure it out. I don't think it's that. No, that's something else. Yeah, that's definitely for the end. Oh, this is the end of round reference for the European edition. That's not really what I want. It's not under there. It's not there. So you can see as I hover over things, it identifies what they are. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'll have to mess around with this a little bit more to figure it out. And I will be right back. Okay. Let's see, objects. No. So the problem partly with Tabletop Simulator is that it's honestly more a simulator than a board game platform. Um, and that is expressed by things like flip the table. When you go into objects, you're actually selecting from a pre-built selection of objects that developers of Tabletop Simulator have made available to anyone. So it's sort of like, oh, I need some dice, maybe some plastic ones. Uh, this one. Look, I have some dice that I got from my, I don't know, uh, my shelves, right? And it's not actually, the dice don't belong in Wingspan. You don't use dice in Wingspan. And I can delete it just as easily, right? This whole components thing or objects thing doesn't really help me find objects that are supposed to already be on the board that I want, right? Um, so it is not what I would call, it is a complete game, but you really have to know what you're doing in Tabletop Simulator, the simulator, to be able to see and interact with the right components to get through the game. And you have to, I'm gonna look at this again. Wah! Sorry, that's my twitchy hand. Um, it doesn't look like it's a real rule book. Normally, the rule book you would be able to manipulate and open it and actually read from it like it was a text document. And I don't see that working here. Yeah, I don't need the scripting editor for that, or I shouldn't. I'm clicking and holding the mouse wheel in order to sort of skate around in the environment. See, honestly, I don't know where. Oh, nice. All right, so that needs fixing. So the end of round board was hidden by falling underneath the mat, which is not cool. But now I can see it. So now that I can see it, I can essentially make the same decisions I was making in the other game versions about which birds I wanted to keep. And then the question is, well, how do I move beyond uh, initial setup? And I think the answer may be I have to do it manually from now on. So the question is like, do I, like, say I want to play this, this is a wetlands. Do I? All right, so it does snap to the placemat in the spots that it's supposed to go, but it doesn't force me to discard. And in fact, I didn't discard the food for the birds I kept, right? So there wasn't any kind of that I could find uh, turn rules enforcement mechanism. It's really just a simulation of the board game, and you have to know how to play, and you also have to know how Tabletop Simulator works so that you can use both to actually play the game according to the rules. Um, yeah, the rules notebook is blank. So I'm still kind of puzzled as to what I am supposed to do with this. If I double click it, it doesn't do anything. If I if I open it, but how do I open it? Oh, looping effect. Oh, there we go. That makes no sense whatsoever. But in order to, all right, wait a minute. Move this. Okay, now that we have it open with the looping effect, we can move it and lose it. Nice. Ugh, not there. Where'd it go? I don't see it. I let it fall through the table, and now I cannot get it back. Options. Nope. Rewind time? Yes, I rewound time so I could get the notebook back, or the rule book. All right, so let's try this again. We'll put the rule book on top of something that we hope will stay. We'll right click and use looping effect 2. Now that it is actually open, I can, it's very awkward. I can zoom in to read it. I can change my angle to be more overhead. I can use the scroll wheel button to pan my view. So now you can actually see the rules, and these let me, oh, look, now I can see this thing that says open. So that's scripted too. So I can actually read the rules and play the game as it's intended by actually reading. See, that didn't help me. By actually reading the rule book, which is kind of interesting in that it's certainly novel, but it's super manual. Like, it's not scripted, and the game won't. It won't enforce. It won't enforce the rules, and you can see down here, I tried to click setup again. I tried to do it again. Oop, wrong. There we go. It says remove cards from player hands and central boards to use the automated setup. So in order to reset, I can either reload the entire base game, or I can flip, 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 flip. Now try. There we go. Now it resets. But I have an error, which makes me actually think I should just reload the whole thing rather than trying to click setup again. So that is why so many people hate Tabletop Simulator. I mean, you can definitely play it online with friends. They can be remote. You don't have to all be in the same house. And certainly the pandemic made that mode of play more desirable because of all the isolation and quarantining that people were doing. And I wish that people were still doing, given that I'm immunocompromised and people not wearing masks directly affects my health. But let's not try to get distracted into that mess. Tabletop Simulator, and also you should know there's a web-based tabletop simulator called Tabletopia that uses the Tabletop Simulator engine to play games. I think it may be more consistently scripted and have more rules enforced, but I'm not sure. I actually haven't played Tabletopia. Tabletop Simulator is awesome from the standpoint of wanting to see and interact with, and you can even play a VR mode, um, but interact uh, with the game as sort of directly as possible. But it also doesn't enforce any rules, so it's possible to inadvertently or to intentionally cheat. Um, and you have to know how to play the game before you can really play it on Tabletop Simulator. Or you have to be super geeky and be able to learn Tabletop Simulator's controls on the same at the same time as learning the actual rules of the game. So it can be a very high learning curve and very difficult to overcome the challenge. Whereas, as you saw with the standalone version on Steam and the Board Games Arena version, you are more, you get more walked through the rules and the possible moves you have rather than being able to, for instance, flip the table, right? Which, see here, I'm getting ejected from the table as I flip, so that's kind of awesome. But um, flipping a table in Tabletop Simulator is as easy as a button click. Um, when you're running the game, you can disable the option, obviously, um, because otherwise a bunch of trolls would just sign on to Tabletop Simulator and flip everybody's tables and make a bunch of people super grumpy. Um, and it gives you sort of ultimate control and flexibility to do whatever the hell you want with uh, gaming assets, but it will not be a great experience for new players because they have to learn how to control the simulator as well as how to learn whatever game it is you play there. It is kind of cool for people who know the game, and it is probably the easiest to make your own games. For instance, oops, a friend and I digitized all the assets for the nuclear war and nuclear escalation games and made it so that it's possible for us to play nuclear war, nuclear escalation, nuclear proliferation, weapons of mass destruction, and the fifth one that I can never remember. Um, the card game, which is brilliantly dystopic and fun and over the top and crazy. And I don't think any of us would be able to learn how to play it on Tabletop Simulator, but since we've been playing it since the 1980s, we don't need the rules. And this is kind of brilliant to play on Tabletop Simulator. Um, and in case you're concerned, the creator, the original creator, died and released the assets and the game to the public domain, so it's not a copyright violation. But you should know that um, many of the workshop games are copyright violations um, in some sense or another, in that the creators of the original pen and paper, table, board, and dice games did not necessarily uh, release these games to the public domain. So that's the other thing to keep in mind with Tabletop Simulator. I think less so with Tabletopia since they're a derivation, but Tabletop Simulator definitely has games on there that were never officially released to the public. And if I were a game creator, I would be very upset to see on Tabletop Simulator without any kind of license fees having been paid. So, caveat emptor on that one. Um, and that's it, I think. Let me know what you think, and I will see you next time. And I hope you take care of yourself, and that you can take care of your family, and they can take care of you. including the furry ones, or the scaly ones, or the feathered ones, or whatever your non-human companions are. Take good care of yourself. Bye-bye.